Okay. Oh, y'all need a book? I did put the theory out for y'all to print, but I did it last night, so I don't know if you chat. Sorry. I had a busy week. All right. Matter of fact, let me have one too. I don't know where my there's some plant books. Thank you, baby. Those look cute. What did you do different? Nuh-uh. You went to the nail salon. Why'd you do that? Why did you do that?
My sister did a vlog and we recorded.
Oh, y'all trying to get these people mad at you. Okay, all right. Well, we'll talk about that. Okay.
She's like, you want to get a picture? I said, no, ma'am. It doesn't have a liner. There's no liner in there.
All right. So, we're going to talk about, good morning, by the way. We'll go ahead and get started, even though we're missing quite a few people today. I don't know what's going on. Like I said, is today a holiday or something? I didn't know. I mean, it is the first of the month, but damn. All right. Well, we're going to rock with the ones that's here. This is page 252. Yep, we're going to talk about nail tips. This is the nail tips and forms chapter. Good morning, Instagram. I am currently on a TikTok ban until tomorrow. So they put me on a 7-day restriction. So I don't know. I'll tell you what happened. I'll tell you why. I know why, because they said why. Because they said that I was soliciting sexual things for sale, because I said I'll never be broke because I'll just sell feet pics on OnlyFans.
That was in class when you said.
Right. And so they said that I was soliciting sexual favors. TikTok is off the chain. You hear me? They said I was selling cooch on TikTok. And I'm like, what? Literally said I will never be broke because before I do that, I would sell pics of my feet on OnlyFans. And they said, you're banned for 7 days. I was like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm sick of y'all. I'm really sick of TikTok. Every time I turn around, TikTok trying to get me. So, you know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, they can have it. They can have TikTok. I got Instagram. I got Facebook. I got Snapchat. I got all that stuff. YouTube is not that strict. Okay? All right. And plus, that's where the money at anyway. All right. So we're going to talk about nail tips and forms today. Now, we're going to stick to tips today because we'll do forms next week. All right. So, when it comes to this chapter, it's split up into 2 sections. So when you see it in the book, it's going to be, but I got my slides completely separate. So just kind of keep up with the slides and then what we're talking about today. And then we'll do a demonstration on a nail tip application. Okay. So what we're going to discuss today is why you need to learn this particular subject, right? As well as talk about the differences between a nail enhancement versus a nail extension. Because now we're getting into actually making nails with acrylic and with tips and with forms, okay, and making them longer. We're also going to talk about some nail prep. What's up, boo?
Lily overslept.
She ain't.
Mama.
Oh, she overslept.
She just woke up. She said she comes tomorrow instead.
I guess. I mean, what else can I say? I guess I could say no. I could say no. But, I mean, yeah, she can come tomorrow, and then I'm going to raise hell tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm going to be a hell raiser tomorrow. Like, if I'm coming in here for 2 people, let me know that it's going to be 2 people. You know what I'm saying? But when I'm expecting 7 people in here and nobody said nothing, that makes me worry about y'all. First of all, I ain't got no text message, no nothing. Y'all all right? What's going on? Nothing. You know, because, you know, we could, if that's the case, do we need to be only a Saturday class? Everybody want to come on Saturday? I get it. I need my week through. Maybe we should go back to Monday through Friday. Maybe that's what we should do. Monday through Friday. And then, you know, eliminate a lot of people. All right. So, Anyway, I'm happy to have the ones we do have. I don't know what's going on with the others. They playing with my time, as they say. Why are you playing with my time? All right. And we'll talk about nail prep, which is so very important, y'all. Nail prep is so important. And that's going to be a lot of the reasons why you guys are having issues with your product not staying on the nails, right? And then we'll talk about different types of nail tips because there are several different types out there, okay? Especially now, you guys are super duper lucky. There's like all these pre-shaped, pre-cut, length, all of that good stuff, okay? Everything, okay? So why do you need to learn this particular subject? Well, first of all, it's a very, nail tips is what most people are going to be asking for. Until you get skilled at sculpting, which is, again, it is a skill. Now, I will tell you that most of my students that learn how to sculpt in here, they don't go back to tips. Like Shayla will tell you, she don't want to use tips ever. She loves to sculpt. Like sculpting is so much fun once you grasp it, and you can do just about anything with it, okay? But nail tips is what most people are going to ask for because that's what they know, right? So it is definitely a very popular service, okay? Now, when you are putting tips on the nail, it's very important that you prepare the nail, okay? And one of the most important parts about choosing nail tips is going to be choosing the proper size of the tip. Have you ever put a tip on, or maybe someone put a tip on you that was slightly too tight? Like you can feel it. It squeezes the nail. It's like putting on a shoe that doesn't fit, right? So what happens to the nail if you don't properly size the tip to the client's finger? What can happen to it? Does anybody have any idea? Because there are some things that can happen to it. Well, it can absolutely pop off. The tip can pop off, right? It can separate from the nail bed because it's not really secure anyway, or you're forcing it down. But what can happen physically to your nail bed if you put on a tip that's way too tight? What do you think?
Would it like mold it?
It squeezes the net. So think about this, right? Let's look at it from a perspective that let's see if I can draw, okay? So you've got a nail tip, right? And we're looking at it from the front view, right? So this is the client's nail, and then this is their like fingertip, right? So this is their nail, right? And you put on a nail tip that can only go from here to here, but you force it down, like you squeeze the little sides to make it go down, right? What's going to happen if you put pressure here, you push it down, and now you've got a nail tip that should have been curved like this, but now it's like, it's been flat, going flat like that so that you can make it. What does that curve naturally want to do? If something's curved and you force it down, what does the curve naturally want to do? It wants to pop back up. So if you super glued it down with nail glue, right? What do you think is going to happen to your natural nail right here? It lifts up. So if you've ever seen a client who has nails like this, now let's look from the top view. If you've ever had a client who's got nails like this, right? Let's just say this is their free edge, right? Hold on, let me put their little finger there. Now it looks like a nail, right? Yeah. Where it's like a white. You've probably had it happen to you. This part is white, looks like the free edge. All of that's white. Looks like, and it's like a little U shape. That's usually because the nail tip was too tight and it forced the nail plate to separate from the nail bed. Does anybody remember what that particular disorder is called? Separation of the nail plate from the nail bed. It's everybody's favorite. What happened? That's it. Onycholiasis. When you separate from the nail plate and the nail bed, he lied to you, sis. You separate from the bed, right? You got to sleep on the couch. Onycholiasis, right? So the nail bed separates from the nail plate. Okay, so you can. A lot of times that can happen from the nail tip being too tight or from trauma. And that's usually when you bump your nail like this. I was going to ask you what happened to your finger. Trauma from lifting the hyponychium away, because remember, you got to have that hyponychium, that little piece of skin right there, and once it lifts, then it's going to be a problem, right? So the nail tip fitting is so very important. Okay. All right. So now I'm getting the text. Everybody overslept. There's people are out of town. All right. Well, good. I don't know what they're going to do when it comes towards time to graduate. All right. Now, let's talk about the difference between a nail enhancement and a nail extension. Anybody have any idea, just from simple context clues? The difference between a nail enhancement and a nail extension. Okay. She reading straight from the book. Okay. I mean, when you don't know, you do a little research, right? Okay, so let's look at it like this. For instance, Jasmine here, Jasmine with a Z, because all I have in class today is the Jasmines today. It's the Jasmine day. It's the Jasmine day, okay? So, Jasmine with a Z over here, and I only know this because she is my niece, okay? She has natural long hair. There ain't a stitch of weave in there. There ain't a track. There ain't a sew down, not a wig, not a nothing, right? So when she does her hair, she's enhancing what she already has. She doesn't have to add any extension. She doesn't have to do anything. If she curls it, that's just enhancing her natural look. So lucky she is, right? But this one over here,
Got to go back.
and well, this Jasmine and this Jasmine, okay, got to add a couple of tracks in there. We want to have us a little bit of length, I wish I could wake up. No, that's a lot of work. I ain't gonna lie to you. That's a lot of work right there. That is when she wet it. Okay, that's a lot of work. So I don't know. I'd have to thin that out a little bit, chop it down. I'll have me a little shortcut if I had all that hair. But it's too hot. This heat, she thinks she ain't never cut her hair. But she ain't never cut it all the way off. I don't know. But so in extensions, obviously, would be when you add length, right? So, just for technical terms and also for state board, the difference between an enhancement and an extension is exactly what we just said. Okay? So everybody got that? All right. So how do we extend nails? Well, we've got the forms, and then we've also got tips. All right. So like I said, next week we'll get more into forms, but tips is going to be your what we're talking about today, and the most popular. Okay. It's definitely one of the most popular. Now, how do we prepare our nails for nail extensions? All right. How do we do that? Well, one of the first things that we're going to do, and this is very important, and one of the things that a lot of people leave out, and that's performing when you're doing your manicure, having your clients wash their hands first, like literally just wash the hands. That's one of the biggest things that's going to help you keep your clients' nails from lifting, okay? Because why do you think? Let's just say, for instance, they come sit down and they haven't washed their hands, which is like, ew. Like, you don't know what the person has done. I mean, I just sat here and I'm over here eating like bow rounds and sausage, egg, and cheese biscuits that's buttery as hell. Like, them good Bojangles biscuits now. So with that being said, you've got all this grease on your fingers and stuff like that. And even if you just take a little alcohol and wipe it off, are you actually getting rid of the oil, or are you just moving it around? Because alcohol doesn't dissolve oil. Alcohol does not dissolve oil. So with that being said, you've got to wash the hands. All right. So once you wash the hands, okay, Then we're going to do our dry manicure, which consists of, now when I say a dry manicure, we're not putting it in the water bowl, right? We're not putting it in that water at all. Now, the reason why I prefer to do a dry manicure is because, I mean, the water is an extra step, and it's not necessary for you to always do a wet manicure. A lot of clients get a wet manicure because maybe they, it's just easier to push their cuticle back, but some people's cuticles aren't that hard to push back. And I'll be honest with you, one of the things that I do is I just use cuticle remover right on their their dry hand, and then let it sit for a second and then push the cuticles back. I do that a lot. Okay, I do that especially on myself. So that dry manicure, pushing back the cuticles, removing that off of the nail plate. And then the next thing that you'll want to do is remove the shine. Now, a lot of people do this with an e-file, right? And they're using sanding bands. Sanding bands do not need to go on the natural nail plate, okay? If you're using one on the natural nail plate, you are absolutely, positively destroying your client's natural nail. It's not necessary. The roughest thing that you really need on a natural nail plate is going to be your diamond bit, okay? And there's a difference between a diamond bit and a sanding band, okay? Sanding band is like an e-file, a hand file, something like this. And if you've got an e-file, even if you're going at level 1, how fast is that going? Number 1. We haven't done the e-file chapter. We'll get to it, but what?
I want to say 30, but I think it's wrong.
How many times is it going in a circle if you're at level 1, instead of 1? How many times? It's not going 1 time in a minute. How many times? 1,000. It's going 1,000 times in a minute. It's spinning. So at 15, it's going 15,000 times in a minute. That's very fast. You can't file 1,000 times across a nail in a minute with your hand. So imagine the kind of damage it's doing to the nail. And people don't think about it that way until you understand how these e-files work, right? So with that being said, you need to use either a buffer, a hand buffer, just a light buffer on the nail, because we're just removing the shine. We're not removing trying to remove pieces of nail plate, okay? Now, the next thing you're going to want to do, and this is very important and a lot of people leave this step out, is cleansing the nail plates. We need to cleanse it, okay? Remove the actual dust off of the nail, okay? Because that nail dust, what is it? What is that nail dust? When you see dust after you buff the nail, when you remove all that off of there, what is it?
Your nail plate.
It's nail plate, and it could also be what? Skin. Skin and all that you've dusted out, like when you buff the nail plate, right? So with that being said, if you don't remove that off of the nail, what do you think is, when you get ready to lay your acrylic, is it actually sticking to the nail plate, or is it sticking to all that nail dust? Sticking to the dust, right? Okay, so with that being said, that can cause lifting as well. So we want to spray the nail or put alcohol on a lint-free wipe and remove all of that nail dust off of the nail, okay? All right, so that's very important that we do all of that before we apply our product. Now, once you have removed all of that stuff and you start to do the rest of your prep, that's going to include your dehydrator and your primer. Now, very important, when you're applying tips, don't put your primer on the nail plate until after you've glued the tip down, right? You want to make sure that you have glued the tip down completely before you put primer on there. Otherwise, if you try to put the primer on before and you try to glue it down, it's going to pop right up. Okay, so dehydrate, you're going to glue your tips down, then dehydrate and prime. Okay, so that's part of the preparation process. Now let's talk about these different types of tips. Several different types out there. Okay, we're going to talk about 5 different types. Okay, so you've got your nail tips. They're usually made of plastic, which is a plastic that is pre-molded, known as acrylonitrile butadiene styrene, which is known as ABS plastic. Okay, ABS. Just use the ABS. That's a mouthful, right? ABS plastic. And the reason we use this ABS plastic, okay, it's going to give you strength and support to the nail, all right? Length and support, not necessarily strength. Length and support. So with this tip, it's going to help us extend the nail. Now, remember what I said about acrylic, right? What is acrylic? Is it concrete or what is it? What is it actually? Glass or what? What is it? All acrylates are what? A product that we use every day. It's a plastic. Okay, all acrylates are plastic. So if tips are a plastic, right, which they are because they melt with acetone, then they can all work together, meaning that you can lay your acrylic powder on top of it. Remember that gel is a plastic as well, so they stick to each other, so they all work together. Remember that glue is a plastic. It works together, sticks together, okay? So with that being said, they all work together, all right? Now, when you use a tip, remember that you're going to need to overlay acrylic on top of it in order for it to have the strength that it needs to be strong enough so that you won't break them, okay? They have to have a certain structure and support. Otherwise, the nail tips would break easily, okay? Now, many of these tips have what's known as, well, it's a shallow well that serves as a point of contact, okay? So that well, can you see it in the picture up there? That is basically your point of contact with the nail plate. Now, this isn't always true with every client. Not every client has that shaped nail, right? So it's helpful when you have a client that has a nicely shaped nail, but it's not so helpful when you have a client who does not. Maybe they have square shaped nails. Maybe their nails are super, they've got high hyponychiums and they're it just doesn't fit very well. So that can be helpful, but it isn't always, all right? So you usually are going to apply glue into that well. It kind of helps you apply that so that it doesn't spread everywhere. But you'll apply glue to that well and then apply the nail to the fingertip. I recommend doing it that way rather than, because you'll see people do it the opposite way, where they'll take glue, put it on the tip, and then press the nail down into the glue. You don't always have enough glue, or maybe you use too much and it spreads and it gets all over the sidewall. So I just recommend putting it in the well, spreading it with the tip of the nail glue, and then applying it. Okay. Now, what if you have problems with the actual tip sticking? What can you do in that case? Because I know that happens a lot. Sometimes your nail tip doesn't stick to the finger right away, like instantly, like you want it to. What is something that what do you think the problem would be if your nail glue isn't sticking well? It could be. Yep, the nail probably is too shiny. You didn't etch it, or maybe you forgot to etch it. It could be that you put the primer down on the nail before you glued it. It could also be that your glue is either too old or too cold. Old or cold. Okay. If your nail glue is too old and it starts getting kind of sticky, because when you got fresh nail glue, it runs out like water almost, right? But when it starts to get old, it kind of has this thick gumminess to it, and it just won't stick. Oh, she did it right. She said, I'm gonna be late. I'm wearing Dunkin', not Dunkin', but Krispy Kreme. I'm about to say now I can't yell. Now I can't yell at her because she brought me Krispy Kreme. She brought us Krispy Kreme. No, you good. Thank you, boo. All right. So it can be, like I said, old or cold. And if it's cold, then remember that heat makes everything work better in the nail world, right? Makes everything work faster, makes it work better. So you can pass her one of those books if you don't mind. We're on page 255, 256, okay? So, and a lot of folks, I don't know why, they'll tell you, put your nail glue in the refrigerator. What is that going to do? How is that's going to preserve it? I don't know. Maybe, I guess, but cold nail glue don't work so hot, okay? So, so those are some things that could cause it not to stick. Now, what can we do if we're having that issue and we ain't got time for all of that, because we really don't? What we can do is, this is nail glue dryer spray. Now, I see a lot of people use it incorrectly. They'll take the tip, put it on the nail, and then they'll tell their client, you know, spray it or whatever. Spray it. Why are you spraying it on top of the tip when the glue is underneath the tip? It's really not helping, right? So the best thing to do, and I do this sometimes just because, you know, maybe I know the glue wasn't sticking with the client before. Yes, baby.
Oh, no, I was saying.
Oh. Yeah, well, no. What they'll do is they'll spray it on top of the tips after they tried to glue them down. That's not doing anything really. That's just drying the glue that kind of seeped out the sides. The best thing to do is to spray a little bit on your fingers before you put the glue on the tip, and then press the tip to the nail. It's gonna stick instantly. Okay, just a little spray. You don't need to, and never ever like spray really, really close. Just spray a little mist like that. That's it. Okay, this is glue dryer spray in a can. That will help the tip stick. All right. Now, this helps determine how far back you want to apply that tip. But there's also several different other types of tips that don't necessarily look like this. These are your typical salon style nail tips. Okay, typical salon style nail tips. But there are several different other types. Okay, so we'll talk about 5 different ones. So you've got your full well tip. Okay, I'm gonna let y'all pick on this picture which one is the full well tip versus partial well tip, well-less tip, full coverage tip, and then obviously a French tip is just gonna be like a white tip, or it might be red. Y'all seen the colored tips, so those aren't on there. But of the 3, those 3 that are up there, which ones do you see?
Well-less.
Okay, well-less tip.
Full well.
Okay. And a partial well. Okay, so the other one's full coverage tip, which is a Gel X tip. That's going to be that looks like a nail, like a press on. Okay, and then your French tip is obviously going to be either white or a red or a pink or whatever color you're choosing, right? Okay, so why would you choose a full well tip, or what do you think the purpose of a full well tip is? Which is that one? Which one is that? The one in the middle. Okay, so that's a full well tip. Now, when we say full well, don't get that confused with full coverage, right? Because full coverage covers the entire nail. Full well usually only covers about half of the nail, depending on the size of the client's finger, right? What would be the purpose of a full well tip? Now, let me tell you, I love full well tips. I love them. Because you got to remember, some people's nails, they ate up. They ain't really all the way. They not shaped perfectly enough to even put a partial well tip on there, right? Not everybody's nails are shaped well enough for that. Okay, so why do you think you would want to use a full well tip, or in what situation would you want to use a full well tip? You think?
Is it when you need like more stability on the natural nail?
I would say yes, in a way, because you got to think, a client sometimes they might have they might not have very much of anything for you to really glue the nail to, right? Or their nails are destroyed from going to, you know, the other places or whatever. And when they take their nails off, they're just kind of not really smooth. And then when you go to glue that little, say you try to use a partial weld tip, maybe half of their nail is like not even there, and it's hanging off the edge there. You know, it's not really attaching the way you want it to. So a full weld tip I really, really like for clients who have really damaged nails, okay? Because you can glue that nail, that tip up to nearly the entire nail. Now the thing about them though is they must be blended very well. Once you glue that tip down, you literally have to file most of that area that is attached to the nail. Now, the reason I say that and the reason why this is so important that you learn how to do it is because guess what? At State Board, you have to do a nail tip with blending application, and you must use, guess what type of tip? A full weld tip. You cannot show up with a half weld tip, or excuse me, a partial weld tip, a full coverage tip, or a weldless tip. It must be a full weld tip, okay? So, because they want to see that you know how to blend, all right? Partial weld tips are not so easy to blend, and a lot of times you end up, and you guys have seen it, you go to the nail salon, they glue it down, right? They cut them, shape them, and then they take their e-file and they just go right over the contact area. They don't really even blend it or anything. Why do you think it's important to blend? What is the purpose of blending the tip?
So it won't pop off.
I mean, you don't. Well, here's one reason why. So you think about it, it's just glue, right? And slick to slick does not like to stick. Okay, so that's one of my little phrases. Slick to slick does not stick, right? So if you've got glue on a tip and you don't blend it at all, not etch it, nothing. What does glue do when it gets dry and you don't touch it? Just leave it there. It will be shiny, slick, hard, like it doesn't really, it's nothing really, it's no etch in it at all. So if you lay acrylic right on top of that and the tip per se without even etching it, then it's probably going to have some lifting in that area, easier to break, okay? So you want to blend where the tip is attached to the nail, and especially with one that is literally taking up half of the nail, you want to blend that away because you want your nail to be made of acrylic mostly, okay? Think about it. When you're doing sculpted nails, it's a reason why sculpted nails usually are much stronger and they last longer, is because they are 100% acrylic. There's no tip there, there's no glue there, there's no nothing there. It's just pure acrylic, okay, that you built out and sculpted. With tips, your nail is about sometimes 50% of it is the tip as far as the thickness of it, okay? And remember, those tips they're just plastic. They're not really that strong. You can't wear the nail without acrylic on it without them breaking, okay? So we want to make sure that the contact area and the apex area of the nail is mostly acrylic. It's going to be very helpful. Now, the partial weld tip, we talked about that a little bit in the slide before this, but they are usually altered at that weld line to expose more of the natural nail. So because that little half weld, that little half piece of weld right there is there, it's going, you have a very small contact area, tiny contact area, okay? So that weld is shorter than a standard full weld tip. Now a weldless tip has no weld at all, therefore there's no position stop. So a lot of nail techs like these because you can kind of put that all the way down the nail if you wanted to. Now I don't recommend that, but you have more leeway as far as where you can position that nail tip without it getting in the way. The tips with the wells in them, you can see air bubbles and air pockets, and it's very important that you don't have any air bubbles or air pockets under your tips. With the weldless one, it's a little harder to see, right? But it's really all about preference, okay? Really, it's all about preference. Now, as far as our French tip goes, obviously you got to be very careful where you place them, or if you're trying to use them for the purpose they're used for. Be careful where you place them, because you'll end up having a smile line that's either way too low, which I don't like French tips. They never, back in the day, they were a thing.
They were.
And those smile lines were depressed. They were like, girl, and it's like, I like my smile lines to be, my Frenches to be Frenching, you know, I want them to be way down. And you guys really like that when it's like really deep French now, which is not nothing new. We back in the day, we used to do it all the time, but I don't know where those little short, ugly French tips came from, where people were like, I don't know why anybody would like that. All right, but moving right along, it is a thing, okay, but when we apply them, you're going to choose the proper size of the tip. Now, how do we choose the proper size? How do we know that a tip fits or does not fit? Because we talked about it fitting, and we got to make sure it fits, but how do we know it fits? What are we looking for when you place that tip on the nail? Sidewall to sidewall. It needs to go from sidewall to sidewall. I would much rather you choose a tip that is too big than too small. Okay, now not too big. Don't put a toe tip on a pinky nail just because that's all you got. But I would rather you choose one that maybe is a half size too big, or than one that is even slightly too small. Okay, because there's a certain structure that we need to have with nails, and we'll get to that in a second. But when you apply that tip, make sure that it fits and you're not forcing it, because it will pinch and cause pressure and pain and cause the tip to pop off eventually, or cause your client to have that onycholiasis, right, from squeezing it. The best fit. Now, remember, not everyone's nails are shaped the same either. Some people have really, really, really high arches on their nails, or some people have flat nail beds, right? So the best fit is going to be a fit where you just literally lay it on top and it just sits there like it's supposed to. And not all tips are made the same. Some tips have deep C curves, some have flat. So choose the best. It's very, very important that you have several different types of tips. And this is why I like to sculpt, because I don't have to have several different types of tips. I can have one type of form and cut it to fit the client's nail. Done, right? Even when you start getting into Gel-X and stuff, you have to buy different shaped Gel-X, because they've got the natural tips, and then they've got the ones that have an apex, a deep apex in them. And those are for the clients that have those high arches, because some Gel-X don't fit everybody, right? So you've got to have, when I tell you I have like 30 boxes of different shapes of Gel-X from when I was doing nails full time. And, some of you'll never use. So it can be a little bit wasteful over time. So, I prefer to sculpt. Again, that's a choice. But if you're going to use tips, try to have different shapes and different options for your clients, because they're not always going to fit. Not all tips fit the same. All right. So when you apply that tip, we're going to put the adhesive on the tip, and you rock the tip on so that you're squeezing out the air bubbles. You don't want to just plop it on there, right? Because then you'll end up with air bubbles, or you might end up not necessarily getting it on straight. Okay, so you want to be careful with that too, because unfortunately, once you lay that tip on there, it's on there. Like, the only way you're gonna get it off is if you either cut. Usually what I do is I just clip it real short, and then I just file it off and try again. I have had that happen where I'm like, damn, what was why is it? Your nail go like that. And you try to tell them, it's your finger, honey. Your finger crooked, honey. And they be like, no, it's just not. You put that on there. You put that. Yeah, I did. I think, let me go on and cut that off and do it. Try again. All right. So once we do get it on straight, most clients are not going to really want necessarily but you guys do. I don't know. They want them extendo nails extra long. All right. But if they want them cut, there's several different ways to cut them. Okay. You got these nail cutters, but I'm going to just be honest with you. These days, these nail cutters don't necessarily cut some of these tips that you guys are using. because if they got a deep C curve in them, a lot of these nail cutters are only made for like the regular shape ones that are like this. I have tried to cut tips before and my tip didn't even fit in there because it was such a deep C curve in it and it couldn't cut it. But if for some reason you do have regular tips on there, just use regular tip cutters. Tip cutters will be are very helpful. All right, and you guys have probably seen the magnets and all that stuff. The magnets are great. Okay, just make sure you cleaning the magnets every now and then. Okay, because they are going up underneath people's fingernails. You know, you just put it on their skin. You know, try to do. You know, that's one of the things that I've talked to Neil. They're like, oh, I never thought about that. You know, you kind of want to clean them every now and then. Give them a nice little wipe down, at least with a wipe or something. But tip cutters are great. My favorite way to cut tips though is with a very, very, very straight set of scissors. Okay. And you just work your way from one side to the other. Again, if you're using those deep C curve tips, if you cut them, sometimes they'll leave a little white mark or they'll pinch them and they change shape. So just be careful that you're kind of nipping away at it carefully. At the end of the day, you can just use a regular pair of clippers, like toenail clippers, the straight ones, not the curved ones. I prefer the straight ones. They do a really good job of cutting the sides if you're trying to coffin out the nail or clip the tip. Okay, it's not that difficult. Just whatever you do, try to make sure that the tip's not going bing, bing, bling, and poke somebody in the eye, or better yet, you in the eye. Okay. All right. So once we apply the nail tip, this is where you're going to actually shape the nail tip, okay? I prefer to get most of my shaping in, and I'm not really particular about it 100% because you got to remember, this is going to save you a little bit of time. You're going to have to shape them again. Here's the thing. That's why I do not really care for tips, because it's so much work. Folks are like, oh, sculpting takes longer. No, it don't. No, it don't. All you do with forms, sculpting, put the form on. With tips, you gotta get the box out. You gotta open it up. You gotta find, oh, that's too small. Then you put in the wrong number, and then you're like, oh shit, I put in the wrong one. Let me dig that out. It's supposed to be in the 6, and then you go and you pull out the right one, and then you're like, oh shit, I put that 6 in there last time. Now I got another 6. Now I got to dig again. Find a 5. Okay, I found a 5. I put the 5. Now it fits. Okay, now I'm gonna glue it on. I glued it on. Damn, I did it crooked. Now I got to take it off and take it and do it again. And then now you got to clip the tips, and now you got to turn the hand this way, make sure they're all the same shape. And then they gotta. Now she said she changed her mind. She wants some stiletto instead of coffin, and now you got to change the damn shape again. And then you did it a little too narrow, and now you gotta fix that shit later. And then it's like, now I got to blend it, and now I blended it, and now she changed it. She don't want them that long. She want them shorter. Now it's like, I ain't got time for that. I done already laid all the acrylic by the time you done glued the tips on. I mean, it's just. Now, again, you guys are lucky. They do make nail tips that are pretty much already shaped, but the client never wants exactly that shape. This is why whenever I get clients that want gel X and they're like, I like it, but it's just a hair too long. Well, this is what it's going to be. It's going to be this length. I'm not altering the shape of a gel X tip because they come in short, medium, long, extra long. Pick the shape you want, or it's going to ruin the shape.
I can't believe I did that.
I can't remember what you got. Too long? They was too long, or they was too
No,
what?
we did gel X, and it was the stiletto.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I think I want it a little more round. Like I didn't like it so pointy.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that, and I was like, I should have just.
It messes up the shape.
Yes,
Because they're already structurally made the way they're supposed to be, so that they'll be strong. Folks are scared of gel X because they're like, oh, it's just a thin piece of plastic. They are strong. I'm wearing them now. I'm wearing them right now. These are gel X nails that I did last night in 15 minutes.
Yeah, no.
Okay? Polish took longer. The polish and the design took longer than the actual nails. Okay? So, they're meant to be a fast Like, if the client's gonna be all fit, look, girl, we finna put some tips on here and we can do what, you know what I'm saying? If they're gonna be one of those that's real picky and they're like, oh, it's just a hair too long. Well, it's gonna be a hair, then it's just gonna be a hair too long this week, because I'm not fixing the shape. Now, the square ones are easier to, because you can just take them down a hair. But even then, I get annoyed. I'm like, listen, I think I'm gonna put that on my booking site. If you want Gel X, do not ask me to alter them at all. This is the shape that they are. If you don't like the length between, if you want a length between short and medium, then do not get Gel X. Get something else. I'm not doing it because that's just the way they're made. Okay, but they are very, very, very convenient. Okay, so shape the nails. Okay, make them the shape that your client wants them, the length that the client wants them. One of the questions I get all the time is, Miss Mary, why are my pinky nail, why is my pointer and my middle and my ring finger, why are they all different lengths? I can't get them those magnets are great, but you got to remember, they will make the nail, all 5 of your nails the exact same length. But then when you do that, you're all the same length. Let's say you put 5 magnets on there. All of these are the same length. They look the same length as far as when you measure them, they're the same length. But when you look at them, they don't look the same length. Why is that? It's always that damn middle finger. But because you got to remember, your fingers ain't the same length. If your or the same width, right? Me and Jasmine, all of us can be the same height. Let's just say we're all 5'9", right? But because I'm wider and she's slimmer and you're, medium size and she's large, and I got bigger boobs and a little bit of hips and she got big hips and small boobs. We're all going to look different heights or proportionately, we're exactly the same height, but we're going to someone would look at someone who's wider or, fat, we'll just say they're fat, which is, politically incorrect, but super big, and they would say that they are short compared to me, who is, maybe I'm super slim, right? So it's the same thing with your fingers. Your thumb is shorter and wider than all of your fingers, right? Your middle finger is slimmer usually, and then your thumb, and usually, okay, we just normal as a setting on a wash machine, honey. Okay, some people you be like, damn, why that middle finger so big? Well, not normal. Okay, but anyway, so you got, it's kind of an optical illusion. So what I do in that case, first of all 3 of these fingers should be about the same length, right? That middle finger, these two are always going to be like the same exact length. That middle finger, you may want to take it down like a millimeter, right? And then these two right here, this one you're going to take it down shorter, this one you're going to make longer. So for instance, what I normally do with the magnets, right? I'll say, okay, we got 5 magnets. The 5 magnets on these 3, I'm going to take one of the magnets off for this one, make it 4. And on this one, I'm going to make it 6. Because otherwise the nails are going to be, you're going to be looking at them going, well, damn, I used the magnets. The magnets are not a problem solver, okay? You just have to know how to even it out. And then at the end of the day, you're still going to tweak it because you're going to be like, that middle finger look a little long. Now, what are we measuring when it comes to length? Are we measuring how long? Because y'all do this, right? You take the fingers and you line up the cuticles, right? Is that correct? Are you lining up the cuticles for the length of the nail? Because if that's the case, the magnets aren't working. Because you're lining up the tip of the finger to the tip of the tip, right? So what are we looking for when it comes to length? Because even with these Gel X, if I line them up together, if you ever take the Gel X and just kind of line them up, they're not exactly the same length. So what are we looking for? You actually should be lining up the tips of the fingers, okay? So what I usually do, if you're having, and when you're new at this, take you a file and just kind of line the tips of their fingers up like this, and the nails then should be equal lengths, okay? Not lining up the cuticles and trying to make the because everybody's nail beds are not perfectly the same. I had an injury to this finger when I fell and broke my arm. I braced myself and ended up jamming this finger right here. So now this finger, the nail is just wider for some reason. It's still probably healing, probably still from that injury back in September. So this nail is wider than this same finger, but it's just wider. So when I look at my nails, even if I look at them right now, I have to pick a bigger fingernail than what I would on this finger. And so it just, to make it look more even, you just got to do some tweaking, right? I might have to shape that one a little bit differently because of the way the nail is shaped. So like I said, it's your job to try to make people's nails look better. You're never going to get them perfect, okay? But just that the goal is to try, all right? Now, let's talk about some of the most common nail shapes, the most common, okay? Ooh, I don't know how that picture ended up like that. Why it look like that? Ooh, yeah, that ain't what that would look like that. Anyway, ignore that. I'll fix that later. So you got square, right? Your square shaped nail. And I hate squoval because I feel like that's not a shape, but a lot of clients will still ask for that even in the year 2025. I'm like, that is so 1992. And like, it's so sharp. I'm like, girl, just scratch your butt with some jeans on and them things are going to be worn down. Just give it a day. Give it a day. They'll be worn down to the shape that they're supposed to be. Okay. And then, of course, you got round. You've got almond. Okay. What's y'all's favorite nail shape? What's your go-to nail shape? Because everybody has their go-to. Yeah, I'm an almond girl. What about you, Jasmine? Jasmine changed it up. She's been known to have a stiletto pinky and a coffin or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's really elementary.
I like the look of like the stiletto pinky with the coffin, but my mind ain't gonna let me do it.
Yeah. Oh no, I don't do that.
Yeah, it's a little. It's a the braiders like that. You know, braiders like that, and then there's just some people. Yeah, yeah. And I can't halfway go any longer than this nowadays because I can't do nothing with them.
Yeah, the older I get, like I ain't really with long nails.
I have my.
I can't. I used to wear them out to here. I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. I can't do it.
Stiletto like witch nails.
Yeah. I got too much stuff to do. Then you have your stiletto, right? Coffin. And then there's that lipstick shape, which is not really necessarily that common anymore. I remember when it first came out, everybody loved it. But what's one that everybody gets nowadays that that's not on here?
Duck.
Ugh.
I
Blech.
do want to try it, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I know. I do like it.
I just can't get down with the duck.
It could be like a medium duck.
Yes.
Baby duck.
Real wide. Oh, I used to love it.
Now that was a Jersey style back in the day.
That's where it started. For real.
The Jersey housewife, all of them, they definitely rock the duckies. The duckies are a thing, but I just can't. I've got some tips at the house that are duck. Every time I look at them, like,
Can't do it. Like,
no. They look like, you know what it looks like to me? Like those chips with the scoops that you can like scoop up. I feel like they would make great chip dip. Like, they're just like, why? No one ever, there's nothing flattering about a wide nail. There's nothing, like, it's not flat. That's like being wide in general. I don't like my wide feet. There ain't nothing cute about wearing stiletto shoes and you got to buy the wide heel, because your feet are like flat and wide. Like there's nothing appealing about wide. Okay. This is why we all trying to lose weight all the time so we can be narrow. Okay. Nothing is cute about wide unless you got wide hips, honey, because they love them. Okay. But other than that, as far as shapes are concerned, we think of any other shapes that are popular. What's this thing? Because I don't consider it duckies. Me and my client were talking about this the other day. Y'all like to do this thing where it's like a C shape. I don't know, what is that called?
Moon curve.
Is it a moon?
So the moon is like real deep.
Right. So it's like a reverse duck
Yes,
almost.
So, but then there's like some where they just want to. My daughter, she always, can you just put the little, at the end.
You got to hold your file like this, don't you?
Well, I use the e-file.
Oh, so
and I just
y'all.
curve it a little
Oh, well, you could do it with the file too if you held it. Because normally you hold a file straight to get it straight, right? But if you're trying to get that moon shape, you could just hold it like this, right? To get that moon shape. If you hold it like this, then you're going to end up getting more of a squoval shape. But yeah, why they like that? What is that? Where they get that from? Where did they even get that from? Who started that?
I just did her nails yesterday. She was like, please put the little. I'll be like, oh my God.
I don't know what that is. To me, it feels like it would just cut everything.
It's like a young thing. I think it's like
Yeah, because I don't never see grown women with it. It's always like
it's
the young,
thing.
and I mean like grown meaning like my age grown.
Right.
I'm talking about like I be seeing like 25-year-olds and stuff. They like that stuff.
The teens and
The turnt ones.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's a thing. I'll be glad when it goes away. Because I'm just tired of it. I'm like, I don't have no clients that ask for it. They know better. I'll be like, that is not a shape.
These ATL girls, they want me.
What is that shape?
And when you on Instagram and you see them, I be like, why? Like,
What
especially
is it?
Atlanta, like,
I just can't even imagine what it feels like to like scratch. Like it would be sharp. Because there's no such thing as a squoval moon. It would have to be super sharp on the corners. It's like a reverse tip. That's how we used to do ducks back in the day, was glue the tip on backwards.
Oh yeah, I've seen some people do that.
Yeah, that was but I mean really you can just sculpt a duck without, just don't put the tip of the form together, just let it be open. And you could get you a duck that way. I feel like that'd be the best way to do it, so you can get it how wide you want it. They just you'll see in a second, because we're going to talk about structure in a second, and it's just not, I just imagine they break very easily because
they get thinner.
there's no C curve in it. You need a C curve. Okay, so speaking of let's talk about the structure, the proper structure of a nail, and this is very important. Okay, I'm gonna take my face off of here. Well, put this right here. All right. So when we talk about a well-structured nail, there's certain things that we need to have to ensure that the nail does not break. Okay? And if you are missing any of these particular aspects of a nail enhancement, then chances are they are going to break. Okay? Number one, you need to have a stress area or an apex or / arch. Okay? So what do I mean by that? Because I get this question all the time. Is my apex in the right place? And what is the apex when you ask that question? Does anybody know what apex means? What does the word apex mean? It means the highest point. When I was in college, that one time in English class, we had to write stories, or he would tell us, write a story about your most embarrassing moment or something like that, right? And what he was looking for was, at some point in your story, there should be, so it can be a good story. Like when you're watching a movie, you think about, you're like, the beginning was boring, but then it took a while to get to the good part. So when you get to the good part is the apex of the movie, right? The part where you have get the most attention. Everybody's watching because it's the greatest part of the movie, right? So when it comes to nails, the apex or the arch is the highest point. So in that area, if it's the highest point, quite naturally, that's where we're going to have the most acrylic, right? That's going to be the stress area, the area where we need the most acrylic because that's where it could more likely break. Yeah. And where do you think that is on your nail? Where do you think the stress area is? Right? It's going to be somewhere in the middle, but that's also going to depend on the length of the nail, isn't it?
Right.
So if you've got a nail, right, that let's just say it's their natural nail, right? Short. The apex, where does it belong? Because a lot of times people are going to, let's just say this is her natural nail, right? And her natural nail is flat, and she's like, I don't like that. And you're laying acrylic on top of it. Where's your apex going to be? It's a math equation, okay? Well, you say in the middle, right? So that would mean if we broke this up into 3 equal parts, then the apex goes right there, right? So that means I'm going to do this right here.
Down right back towards the cuticle.
Okay, so let's look at it from a different, instead of saying middle, okay, we're going to break this nail. It goes into the apex starts at the beginning of the back third of the nail, okay? And you can say beginning of the back third or the end of the first third, right? You can say whatever you want to say, but let's just keep it simple, okay? So we got 1, 2, 3 equal parts. The apex is never going to be the highest point and then goes down, right? It's going to go up from the cuticle, go to the highest point and stay out. Keep going, right? We don't want our movie to be, inciting in the middle and then it gets boring at the end. Everybody left the movie theater, right? All right, so we start here and we're going to go up, 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 up. We got to our highest point and then we stay like that. See what I'm saying? So that would be on a short nail, okay? That's on a short nail. Now, if I were to do this, let me just put this on there so that way. Now, if I were to do this on, because that's a pretty short apex, right? And this is why doing short nails is difficult. This is why a lot of people's short nails look thick and wide and like a speed bump. They look like a speed bump. Let's just be real, okay? So let's talk about, so you got to be real careful when you're laying your acrylic that you don't get it too thick, okay? So now let's just say this client wants her, you're laying out a tip. This is the tip. We're laying our acrylic on the tip. Where's our apex gonna be? Where do you think? Come on up here, Jasmine, and show me.
No,
I don't care which Jasmine.
You were just about to.
Come on up here.
Yeah.
Y'all was both measuring. Y'all did not just do rock, paper, scissors. They did rock, paper, scissors. Okay. So break it up into thirds. Just try your best.
I like these on nails, so I think.
All right, so you got 1, 2, 3. Okay, so where's my apex gonna be?
Like right in here.
It's gonna start low and then it's gonna go up, 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 up. All right, see now what you did? See what you did? You went up here and that's your highest point and then you stayed straight. So you need to start here, go up, go up, go up, go up, go up, and then straight. Perfect, boom. You see that? Don't that look better? Okay. Then way up here and then straight, which is what a lot of nail tech, I see them doing it. They're like, oh, my apex is gonna be high right here. You got this big ass bump. And then your nails are real thick, right? Because you gotta remember, you want this to be kind of like that. See how that looks? Right? You don't want it to be too thick. And so think about where the nail is gonna break. Even on a nail like this long nail, it's gonna break. Look at where your third is. It's gonna break right there. So your apex, the thickest part, needs to be right here, and then bring it out. Okay. Now this is with a salon style nail. When we get into sculpting exotic shapes and stuff like this, you might tip the form up, like stiletto nails go down. They get thinner as that's a whole different thing. Okay. But when we're talking about salon style tips, okay, that's how it should look. Okay. Make sense? All right. So you got your apex. Gotta have it. If you have a flat nail, a nail that looks like a diving board, and I see them all the time, diving board nails, those are gonna break. They're gonna snap. Okay. All right. So the next thing that you need is a sidewall. Sidewalls are very important. Okay. This happens a lot when you get into your shaping. You accidentally, it happens all the time, you accidentally go file happy and you cause your sidewalls to be disrupted. Let's see what I'm talking about here. All right. So you got your nice little long nail, right? You just laid your acrylic, right? Now you're going to get ready to shape it. And you take your file and you're holding it, instead of holding it straight, okay, meaning holding it, let me put this up here. Oops. You're holding it straight. Instead of holding your file like this and shaping it straight, you're holding it like this. You're getting in that corner, right? What happened? You do that all the time? Oh, y'all, there's some donuts up here. We got to eat. We got to eat these.
I need to watch. My stomach.
Okay. So when you hold your file at an angle like this, right here, then you're cutting into and you cause a notch right there in the sidewall. Okay? And it might not be that visible. It might just be maybe a little one like that into the sidewall. And then what happens? It breaks. It's gonna break. Okay? Sidewall should be straight. I know that these curved nails are a thing, right? But think about what happens when this is why we do rebalances. Again, if a nail if it's a curved tip, that's the way it's supposed to be, then you just got to be very careful to make sure that you have enough acrylic in the right place. But what happens when the nail is now doing this? What happens when it starts to curve like that? Well, first of all, your apex, the whole nail is an apex, really. At the end of the day, when you touch things, your fingers the nail is bent. So it puts pressure. These type of nails break. They just break because they're curved, and a lot of times they're not, if they have a deep C curve in them, then they won't. But these tips ain't made like that. They're made flat and they just go boom like this. And so you got to have all of these aspects in order for a nail to be strong, okay? So yes, you could essentially have a curved nail, right? But if it doesn't have a deep C curve on the inside of it like this, to give it strength, it's gonna break. And most of those tips, those curved tips, they just do like that. They just go, okay? So, not necessarily the best shape for structure, okay? So we need our side walls. Now, the other thing that's very important is that we have clean underside of the nail, meaning, especially when you're doing forms, if you've ever put a form on, and we're going to do this next week, but if you've ever put a form on and the form had a little gap right there when it didn't fit like a glove, you lay the acrylic down and then the acrylic seeps down into that hole, and then you got this little notch of acrylic under there. Well, that means that you got more acrylic under the nail than you do on top of the nail, and you need the structure on top of the nail. Okay? So in that case, you need to clean that out. Not to mention it sticks to everything. It's going to catch on your hair. It's going to catch on anything that's straggling. Okay? So having that clean underside is very important. Now, the last part, and probably the most important part, is the C-curve. Okay? The thickness of your nail, number one. How thick should a nail be, y'all? This is a question I get all the time. How thick should it be? Well, we know that nails and we're talking about thick meaning at the free edge, the tip of the nail. Okay? If it is thicker than a business card, well, excuse me, not a business card, a credit card, okay, then it's probably too thick. Okay? A lot of these tips are that thick. If you look at are you wearing Gel X right now? If you look at them from the tip, because I can show you these Gel X that I'm wearing right now, they are thin. They're not thick at all, but you can't bend them. They're strong, you know what I'm saying? They are a plastic, okay? So but they also have a C curve in it. So you can have, if you have really thin nails, because you'll say, okay, Miss Mary, you said that they only need to be as thick as a credit card. Okay, so let's look at it from the front view. If I'm looking at your nail, looking at my nail like this, right? So you'll say, okay, well, Miss Mary said they only need to be as thick as a credit card. So if a client's nail is flat you put the tips on like this, and you did it real thin, you're like, yeah, well, they're thin like a credit card. Well, yeah, you did it thin like a credit card, but guess what? That's gonna break. Why? Because you can only have it thin as a credit card if you got a nail that has a C curve. Why do we need this C curve? We'll make it about that thick. And a C curve is a 50% circle. So imagine this being a whole circle. Okay? If you've got a C curve in a nail, it can be as thin as paper and ain't gonna break. Think about your clients that have beautiful nails. Think about people who have beautiful nails, natural nails. Why are they always so nice and beautiful? Because they look like that. They're strong, even though they're thin, natural nails. They're strong because they have this arch. Think about, anybody ever been to St. Louis or where is that, Missouri, where they got them golden arches or them arches or whatever? That's a whole restaurant up there. You can go on an elevator, go straight up to, and it's just an arch. It just be swaying in the wind, they say. But it ain't gonna fall over, it ain't gonna break. Think about bridges and stuff like that. Well, it hasn't in years, it never has. And the reason being is because that arch. Think about a straw, like a straw right here. How is something so thin and plastic? I could take this out, and if I try to bend it, why is it not easily bendable? I could really put some strength on it and bend it, but look at why is it like that? It's because it's a circle. If it was a flat piece of plastic, it would flop and flip and flop, right? So it's the structure of that C curve that you're looking for, okay? And that C curve needs to be at least, the 50% circle that's when it's at its strongest, a 50% circle. But 35% is the least you can go. Anything that's flatter than that, that's why I don't know why y'all like these flat nails, girl. They're flat.
Or no C curve.
No C curve tips. I sell them. I sell them. It's a look.
I like the nosy curve too.
I sell them. It's a look, but
It's a look, yeah, right.
you better have one of those other aspects in there to make sure they don't break. But that's the ones that break. And the reason being is because it has to, a structured nail, properly structured, has to have all of those aspects. Your apex, okay? Remember, your apex, your sidewalls, a clean underside, as well as the proper thickness and that C curve. Now, the length of the nail is going to be also important as well, right? Because the longer you get, the longer the apex is going to be. Okay? And remember that as your client's nails grow, this is why I tell y'all that your refills should be more expensive, if not or the same price, if not more expensive than your full sets. Why? Because as that client, especially if they don't get cut downs, I mean, their cut downs should be costing too. But as their nail grows out, let's just do an example of a grown out nail, right? So the clients, they've grown it out, right, to here, and that this is where their fill-in area, and then their apex is now way out here. Okay, you got to fill it in. Well, we got to bring that apex back. Got to bring it back some. Okay. Well, we're gonna have to build this up. Let's see if we did 1/3. We got, we'll break it up here, 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 right? So their apex, which should have been started out way back here, has now shifted up to the front. All right, so now we got to build all this up and make it a little, to bring it up to there, right? And then as it grows out even more, we got to bring we got to now, because the apex is somewhere over here, we got to shave that down and bring it back to where it's supposed to be. So that's where a rebalance is. Not to mention their nails now is starting to do this right here. So now we got to shave all that off and bring it back up, which is a whole skill too, because you've got to, now you've got to add acrylic. If it's down here, the nail has started to tip down, we've got to add acrylic here, and then we got to shave this off to make it straight again. So it's a lot of work. Like I said, after a while, you might as well, if they don't want to pay, just soak it off and do a new set. If they don't want to pay, you know. But I mean, if you got clients that are coming to you, I mean, I didn't really have no broke clients that was like over here trying to like piece together their nails back together. And you're like, I ain't got girl. So they'll do what you know, what you think. Cause I have one that she's had a set on to the point where her whole entire nails are, they're her nails now. And she's just like, do I need a new set? I'm like, yeah, you need a new set. She don't want to cut them because they're her natural nails. But now they're starting to do, you know, they're beautiful. I did them yesterday. They're absolutely beautiful, and they're all 100% her nails. But like I said, they're starting to look like claws. And well, I mean, and when they start to claw over like that, that's when you start having more chances of them bending, because the sidewall's not straight. You need straight sidewalls. Remember, that's part of the structure. So when they start to curve, the chances are they're gonna break right there, and that don't feel good when it breaks right there on the nail bed. That is the absolute worst. Okay, so we don't want that. So everybody understand, because we are going to, those are actually my nails, some that I did. Yeah, those were, you can see all of that. Yeah, those were encapsulated and sculpted. Okay, so excuse me, with tips. Those were tips. Those were my tips, the C-curve tips. So now I want to do a demonstration and show you guys how you actually, oh, I'm so glad she's here. It is hot as in here. I tried to get here early. Good morning. Hi, Sunshine. She here early. I'm so glad you're here early. I'm so glad you're here early. No, I'm just glad. I'm glad to see you.
I know, right?
Open up them donuts too, so we can eat one. All right, I'm gonna get off this live because y'all we